Stop talking, thanks. Okay, so we're talking about converting. So we're talking about this?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, stop talking. Stop talking. Have to block you. Yes.
As long as you don't ask it to move up and down. No, that goes.
Okay. Right. Converting between fractions and decimals. To convert from a fraction to a decimal, you divide the numerator by the denominator. Right? All you're doing is you divide the numerator, the top number, by the denominator. So this one is 4 divided by 5. And if you do that in your calculator, 4 divided by 5 is 6. Okay. 3 divided by 8. Can someone do that, please? 2 divided by 8. What's 3 divided by 0.375? Thank you. Okay, so that's it. You convert from a fraction to a decimal. Very easy. Okay. Now, to go from decimal to fractions, so any decimal, if you look at this one, this means that it's 3/10, 700, and 5,000. You can think about it as 375,000. 375 over 1,000. So that's what I mean when you say you make it a fraction over 10 if it's in the tenths column, because it's that many tenths, or over 100 if it's that many hundreds, or that many thousands, etc. And then you simplify the fraction. So once you put it over 100 or about over 1,000 or whatever, then you simplify it and you make it the simplest form. And obviously, a calculator can help you do it very quickly. Right, but you should know how to do it without a calculator. Okay, so, but that's the problem. So, if you have a look, you just finish one of this. So, if you have a look at the first one, 0. Why did you go through this? Okay. So 0.045, what's in the hundreds column? What holds the place value? How many hundreds? Yeah, so 5 times 6,000, so 5,400. So what we do with this is just say it's 45 over 1,000. So then you see here 10, 10s, and 100,000. So 45 over 100. To simplify this, we can divide top and bottom by 5. 45 divided by 5, Adriana. There's a calculator, please. 45 divided by 5. 9 and 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. Alright? Any questions about what I've done here? You understanding what I'm doing? 0.5 is a fraction. You should be able to know that that's half, but it's going to be 5 over 10, and then that equals 1 half. That was simplified. Yes. Yes. There is no restriction whatsoever on that, so you don't have to do it. On the calculator, that's can I put up here? Is that right? Is acceptable? Okay. This one, 1.0083. Well, the 1 you can think of as second. You can just make it a mixed numeral, so you just put the 1 out the front. So you go 1, and then 8 is in the thousandths column, and the 3 is in the 10,000. So if you think about it, it's 83 over 10,000. So it's 83 over 10,000. And this can't simplify anything. So that's what we're doing. 1 and 83 over 10,000. Type fraction. So again, anything you type in, you know how to change between decimals and fractions on the calculator? You just press the fraction button and it will switch between a decimal and a fraction. If you do second function and the fraction button, you're going to go between a mixed numeral and an improper fraction, if it is an improper fraction. Otherwise you won't do it. Okay, can I move it up? Alright. Okay, so the next thing is, next little heading is operations with decimals. Alright, so again, most of these you just use a calculator. Alright, with the best will in the world, even if I came to do some of these things, or even if you've been doing maths for a long time, it's just going to take a bit of time to make sure you get it correct. So save time, you can use a calculator. But I'm just showing you what to think about, so that you get an idea that you're still within the right ballpark, if you like. You understand how to estimate. Okay, so 4.53 plus 3.64. So this is adding and subtraction. So obviously if you wanted to do it by hand, you do something like this. Alright, make sure, okay, that the decimal places are lined up, and then just add it together. So 3 plus 4 is 7, 5 plus 6 is 11, take that one up, so it's going to be 8.17, which is okay, so you just do like okay, 42, 5.42, so this one we do 5.42 minus 2.83, so we get a little bit of work, that's 3, that goes to 12, so we get 9, goes to 4, 13, so we get 5, it's 2.5. I think you should be able to do this over and over again if you're asked to do it. You don't have to be math line anymore. Thanks for that. Because you're no longer in 9. So that's good, sorry. It's from 3579. So you have finished with that. Should we take it out? Okay, it's going to be. Alright. Now multiplication is the same. Multiplication, again, it's quite time consuming to do it by hand, especially if it's a long decimal. But the key point with most decimals is when you multiply them, you end up with the same number of decimal places as the two numbers put together. Right, so if you have 2 decimal places number multiplied by 2 decimal place number, your answer is going to have a 4 decimal place. Or if you have 3 and 3, you multiply them together, you're going to have 6 decimal places. Not always, because of certain circumstances, and I'll show you one example. that happens, but usually that's what happens. If you have 2, 2, it becomes 4, 1 and 2, you're going to have 3 decimal places, etc. Alright? So that's just a point to remember. Can I move up? So Alright, so that's just a note about when multiplying decimals. And so when you do it on your calculator, if you do it and it looks wrong, for example, this, if you do it and it looks completely wrong, then you know that this is one of the signs to look for. If you're multiplying something in 2 decimal places with 1 decimal place, you should have 3 decimal places in your answer. Okay? So this one, 4.34 times 2.4, it equals 10.416. So you notice it's 3 decimal places. This one has 2, this one has 1. In total you have 3 decimal places. 5.86 times 4.32. How many decimal places is this going to have, really? How many decimal places will the answer to this one have? You've got 2 here, you've got 2 here. 4. 5.86 times 4.32. So 25.3152. Now the last one, 8.5 times 3.2. Luke, how many do you expect this one to have in terms of decimal places? You've got 1 decimal place multiplied by another decimal place. You'd expect 2. Now does that happen? Question is, and my answer is that it doesn't happen. Hopefully that's true. It becomes 27.2. Now it is actually has 2 decimal places, but the reason is that there's 5 and 2. When you're multiplying the 2 numbers, your final decimal place becomes 0. Right? Just because 2 times 5 is 10, and so the way that the numbers flow, the final number of the decimal places is a 0. So it comes up as 27.2. So the rule still holds true, but it's not always the case. When the 2 numbers multiply to a multiple of 10, then that's when you can become a bit confused, possibly. So just take note of it. Okay, note this. Just take note of it, that it's not always the case. It depends on whether the numbers multiply to something that ends with a 0. Okay, so this would happen with, say, 5 and 6, 5 and 8. Okay, so that's what we've got so far. Multiplication, and again, there's nothing wrong with using the calculator. Mental arithmetic is good, keeps your mind active, but probably a test situation is not the best time to test your calculator. How quickly you can work out. Is that right, Chelsea? Glad you agree. That's wonderful. Okay, just quickly, division. Now, to divide by hand, you have to do long division. Hands up if you're confident with long division. Ah, really? That's all right. Long division has its uses. Okay, but usually you're not going to bother doing it. Is that right, Anita? You don't use long division a lot, I would imagine. No. Good. Now, so division using the calculator is the easiest thing. But you can use this trick when you have 2 decimals, or some numbers with decimal places. If you shift the decimal places on both, the same number of places, when you divide them, the result will be the same. Okay, and that's all got to do with fractions and equivalent fractions. The fact that whatever you multiply both by, as long as it's the same, the result is unchanged, because they're going to cancel out as a common factor. Alright, so this example, I'll show you this one. So 7.83 divided by 0.53. Now this is difficult to do by hand because it's cumbersome, and working with division with decimal places is difficult. So we can change this to, it's actually equal to 783 divided by 53. What I've done here is I've shifted 2 decimal places. I've multiplied both by 100, and so I've shifted this one 2 decimal places, this one 2 decimal places. Alright, so then if I do my long division over here, 783 divided by 53, here's a test for someone. Who would like to come and stop doing it. Come and do the long division. 0, 7, 1, good. Okay, and then you divide it underneath. Yeah, so you take away. Which is 25. I think you have a different method. I write the 5300 here, and then it's 253, and then you say how much it is. Alright, looking here. So first let's start. 53 doesn't fit into 7. 53 fits into 78 one time. And so 1 times 53 is 53. Subtract it, you get 25. 253. 53 fits into 20. 253 how many times? Doesn't fit in 5 times. I can give you that. So it's going to be 4 times. 4. So then we have 4 times 53 is 212. And we get 41. Doesn't fit. 410. Dot, 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 etc. You can see that this is quite a laborious sort of long process. We're not really interested in doing this by hand. So Annabelle, find on your calculator please what this actually is. 7.83 divided by 0.5. Alright. We're not subtracting. What am I subtracting? Oh, this is long division. If you don't know long division, don't worry. I can show you if you would like. Oh, that's... So what you do is you put the number, how many times it fits in each one, and then you multiply, put it underneath, subtract it, bring the next one down. 4 times this is 212, then you subtract it again, add the 0, and see how it goes. Right? So the answer is 14.77. Okay, 14.77. That's just a calculator. I could have got there, but text it. Alright, so it's not the best, most practical method. Unless you're specifically told, Georgia, do it by hand. Okay? But let's use a calculator, that's fine. Alright. So the final thing is very straightforward. Alright, so when you multiply by powers of 10, the decimal place, so if you like, you shift the place values, it moves to the right, the decimal places, and if you divide by powers of 10, the decimal place moves to the left. So you're shifting the place values, moving along, increasing its size by powers of 10. Alright, So just 4.34 times 100, you're moving it 2 places, so it's 434. 0.534 times 100,000, you're moving it 5 spots. So what's going to happen is we're going to get 5, 3, 4, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 0, 0, 0. 534,000. When we divide it, the decimal place moves to the left, so we end up with 0.3452. And the final one is divided by 1,000, you're going to move to the left, 0.05678. Alright? And you shift the place value the same number of places as the number of zeros in the power of text. So if it's 100, it's 2 zeros, move it 2 places. It's 1,000, 3 zeros, you move it 3 places. Thank you, Anna. Yes, Millie? Sure. Okay. Okay, so just write down an example on it. There you go. Write down an example quick, and then move it. Alright, so now after this, going to write the questions on the board.